Number 1. Treasure Dragon. You were the kid who hoarded Halloween candy, kept toys in perfect condition rather than playing with them, or felt sick when someone borrowed your favorite pen. The psychology behind this is rooted in what researchers call resource scarcity trauma. When children experience unpredictable loss, whether it's physical items, emotional security, or basic needs being met, their brains develop hyperactive loss prevention strategies. This shows up in weird ways as an adult. Maybe you have 17 backup phone chargers because losing power terrifies you. Maybe you can't throw away clothes you haven't worn in years because what if you need them someday? You stay in relationships or jobs long after they've stopped working because letting go feels impossible. Dr. Randy Frost's research on hoarding behaviors shows that the behavior begins in childhood or adolescence, typically between ages 15 and 20. The behavior is associated with emotional attachment to possessions, lack of emotion regulation, and avoidance of negative emotional experiences. The digital age has made this even more complex. You might have thousands of unread bookmarks for just in case, or you follow people on social media you don't even like because unfollowing feels like losing something. If you find yourself feeling stingy with opportunities or even happiness, if someone else's good news makes you feel somehow diminished, that little kid who learned resources were scarce is still guarding your adult life like a dragon protecting gold. Number 2. Pocket Philosopher. Were you the kid who had an answer for everything? The one adults called wise beyond your years. Felt responsible for solving the world's problems at age 10, meticulously explaining how complex systems work. While other kids were worried about cooties, you were worried about the mortgage. This isn't just being smart. This is a premature emotional labor. It's like your childhood got hijacked by a grown-up brain that was never supposed to show up that early. Your brain became a philosophy factory, churning out wisdom to make sense of chaos you should never have had to understand. Dr. Kazimierz Dabrowski's research on intellectual overexcitability shows that highly sensitive, intellectually gifted children often develop existential depression. They become overwhelmed by questions about meaning, fairness, and the nature of existence. Your brain developed abstract thinking capabilities before your emotional regulation and skills caught up. That little philosopher in your head felt so important, but what you were really doing was survival thinking. Child development expert Dr. Mary Elaine Jacobson explains that intellectually precocious kids often become adults who over-intellectualize everything, including their emotions. Instead of saying, "I feel hurt," you analyze why the other person might have acted that way and what sociological factors contributed to it. This shows up as emotional avoidance disguised as deep thinking. People who chronically intellectualize their emotions have difficulty forming intimate relationships. You think you're being wise and analytical, but you're actually running from your own heart. Number 3. Tiny Firefighter. You were the kid who grew up in a household where chaos is the default setting. Maybe there was addiction, mental illness, financial stress, or just parents who couldn't keep their emotional temperature regulated. This made you develop crisis addiction by putting out fires that were never yours to fight. The adrenaline rush felt important. Every crisis you solved proved you were valuable, necessary, irreplaceable. You became addicted to being the hero because being the hero was the only time you felt truly seen and needed. But here's the thing about being a tiny firefighter. You start seeing fires everywhere, even when there's just smoke. Or worse, you unconsciously create fires because putting them out is the only way you know how to feel useful. Now you're an adult who thrives in chaotic jobs, dysfunctional relationships, and constant emergencies. When life gets too peaceful, you feel anxious, like you're failing at something. You don't know how to just exist without a crisis to solve. Dr. Pete Walker's research on complex PTSD explains that hypervigilant children often become adults with emotional flashbacks, sudden intense reactions that seem disproportionate to the current situation. If you are married, for example, your partner can be in a perfectly good mood, but you're always already bracing for the explosion that never comes. Your tiny firefighter brain is still patrolling for fires that only existed in your childhood. So, if you find yourself overanalyzing texts, reading disaster into neutral expressions, or feeling physically tense even when things are going well, that little kid who learned the world was dangerous is still running your nervous system. Number 4. Little caregiver loop. You were the kid who made breakfast when mom had a hangover, mediated your parents' fights, or became the family therapist at age 8. If this sounds familiar, you rolled a little caregiver role way too early in life. This is not about helping with chores or being responsible. This is about emotional labor that no kid should have to carry. You basically became everyone's therapist before you even learned how to control your emotions. Here's what happens. Early responsibility makes you mature earlier than your peers, but it also programs you for a lifetime of exhausting relationships. Psychologists call this parentification, when kids take on adult emotional or practical responsibilities. Dr. Lisa M. Hooper's research shows that parentified children often become adults who feel responsible for everyone else's emotions, even when it destroys their own well-being. Your nervous system learned that other people's comfort equals your safety. When mom is happy, then you are happy. The cruel irony is that people who constantly prioritize other people's needs over their own report higher levels of anxiety and depression and relationship burnout. You think you're being loving, but you're actually training people to take advantage of your endless giving. Number 5. Teacher's pet perfectionism. Do you remember that kid who always had their hand up first? The one who color-coded homework, turned in assignments 3 days early, and felt physically sick getting a B+. Well, if that's you, you might have sabotaged your adult life in ways you never realized. Here's the thing. While your classmates were learning that failure was just another way to level up, you were grinding for external validation. You optimized your entire character build around getting gold stars from authority figures. This childhood behavior pattern creates what psychologists call approval-seeking dependency. Basically, you've trained your brain to need constant positive feedback to feel worthy. Dr. Brené Brown's research on shame and vulnerability shows that perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about avoiding criticism, judgment, and blame. The problem is the real world doesn't hand out gold stars and validation points for everything. Your boss doesn't give a shit about you, and most meaningful work involves trial and error. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset versus fixed mindset shows that kids praised for being smart, rather than working hard, often avoid challenges later. They'd rather look smart than risk looking foolish by trying something difficult. If you ever find yourself overthinking or avoiding starting because you can't guarantee perfection, that little kid who needed approval is still running your adult decisions. Number 6. Good child freeze. Were you the kid who never caused problems, never asked for much, and learned that being invisible was the safest way to exist? While other kids were throwing tantrums and pushing boundaries, you were perfecting the art of being invisible. Maybe you had volatile parents who exploded at the smallest things. Maybe you had a sibling who got all the attention by acting out, so you learned that your role was to be the easy one. Or maybe your family was going through something so intense that you instinctively knew adding any pressure would make everything collapse. So you froze. You became the perfect child by becoming no child at all. No needs, no wants, no big emotions, no mistakes. The adults loved it. She's such a good kid, no trouble at all. But what they were really praising was your ability to abandon yourself for their convenience. You learned that love was conditional on how little space you took up. If you grew up with a narcissistic mother who needed you to be her perfect little man, anytime you expressed preferences, needs, or emotions, she'd either guilt-trip you or withdraw her love. So you learned to anticipate your needs and never have any of your own. Now in your 40s, successful in your career, but have no idea what you enjoy doing. You can tell exactly what everyone else needs, but if asked what you want for dinner, you'll short-circuit. That good child is still there, frozen in place, convinced that the moment you become fully human, messy, needy, complicated, everyone will leave.